Hi, welcome to this quick hit. Today we'll be talking about governance galore, focusing on making changes in your application and using the Sandbox tool to do so. First, I'm Cattini, a product manager here at QuickBase, focusing on all things governance, the governance roadmap and governance functionality, which does include Sandbox, which is what we'll be talking about today. For the agenda, we'll be talking about application governance, so changes that you're going to make in your application, best practices, how to make those. We'll then be talking about Sandbox, so that's a tool that is helpful in order to make those changes in a safe area. We'll dive into what Sandbox looks like there. And lastly, we'll take a look at a live demonstration of Sandbox, see what that looks like in a live application, and have Sandbox turned on for us there. So let's dive in first to application governance and making changes in your QuickBase application and really what that includes and what that entails. So change management, or working with your application through its lifetime, it includes a set of processes that are a part of your larger ALM strategy, and we can make those specific to organizing and managing changes in a QuickBase application. As you use your application from the day it's created until it's deleted or end of life, you'll be making changes, and you'll have processes in there to make those changes easier and to have those adhere to some governance standards. As we mentioned, application governance and a change management strategy, it includes a strategy, it is a strategy, where you can safely change your application as your business requirements change. Again, make those in a safe area and then promote those into your live application when you feel confident in those changes. And then lastly, speaking of confidence, what an application governance strategy can do is provide that governance to a number of different users that touch QuickBase, including your IT team, builders, end users, etc. They can have confidence that changes are made in a safe area as the application grows and is continually modified, so you can have a safe application with correct changes made every single time. So application governance is an important part of your application's life, of changing your application, especially talking about that change management process in which you'll make those changes in that live application. So change management inside of QuickBase. Now we know what it is, what it entails, and the kinds of strategies that you'll have there. But what are some best practices when you are making changes to your application inside your QuickBase application? And these are some best practices that we've seen our other customers use and get value from. So we recommend that you first establish a governance strategy, a change management strategy as you make these changes early in the application building process. That's not to say that those changes should be thought about or that strategy should be made before you have QuickBase Live and you're up and running on QuickBase, but you want to think about that strategy as early as possible so you're building on top of that strategy as your QuickBase grows and you get more value from your QuickBase usage. Change management can also include different processes, tools, individuals, groups of individuals, and they should all be working towards the same goal. Specifically, one of those tools that you can use, and the tool that we'll be talking about today, is QuickBase Sandbox. And it is a tool that you can use and execute on when you're building and collaborating on applications, specifically when you're changing applications in the middle of their life. And lastly, for Sandbox specifically, we want to make sure that you're implementing Sandbox on applications where it makes sense. Not every single application is going to need Sandbox turned on for every single change. That's really up to your discretion. That's how you see Sandbox working best for you. We want Sandbox to promote growth, to help you build, not hinder you build, and really that's up to your discretion. We'll talk about some applications that can really benefit from turning Sandbox on, and we'll dive into that a little bit deeper. So now we've talked about some of the benefits of Sandbox, why you would turn it on, and Sandbox as a tool to execute some of that governance strategy. But what is QuickBase Sandbox? So we talked about it's an integral part of any governance strategy regarding change management of an application. So any changes that are made in an application, Sandbox can be used as a tool to do that in a safe way. And it is a safe area to build, change, verify, collaborate, eventually release and promote those changes into your production environment, but first doing that outside the production environment. Essentially taking a copy of that application, making all the changes in there, verifying the correct, checking with your coworkers, whatever you need to do to make sure those changes look good. And then you can promote those into a live production environment when you're confident in the changes and they're correct. And we'll dive into a demo of that, but it is that safe area where you can trust and build in first. And essentially, Sandbox answers the question, have you ever made a change in production for a business critical application, a highly important application that touches a lot of end users maybe, and made a mistake when modifying in the production area? And maybe that has reached end users and that mistake has caused some issues there. I'm sure I have, I'm sure we've all maybe made a mistake there. Sandbox can help answer that question, get rid of that issue, because you are making changes in a safe environment before you're making them in production. So a question or an issue like this won't be happening when you're using Sandbox. So that's what Sandbox is, but why use Sandbox? We did talk about some of the best practices and maybe benefits of Sandbox there, but why would you turn Sandbox on for an application? And really, Sandbox can provide a number of different pieces of value. Did want to talk about these three right here. First, Sandbox can help minimize risk. So we did talk about this before. You can modify your changes. You can modify your application in a safe place outside of your live production environment before promoting into your live environment so you can minimize risk. You can verify all the changes in that safe area outside, not modify that in a live area, and you're not going to have maybe errors come up in a live area. So minimizing risk, definitely helpful with Sandbox, and a reason that Sandbox can be turned on for an application where it makes sense. Secondly, Sandbox can also help with collaboration. So what you can do with Sandbox is share that with other individuals, share that with other stakeholders you're working with, gather their input, make sure the changes make sense for the stakeholders and yourself, and then promote to a live environment. So it can really help with working with others, sending changes to others, have others test your changes. So it's not just you in an isolated environment making those changes quickly in production. You have the ability to share those changes with others because it's in a safe environment that can be sent out. And lastly, Sandbox can help you create process. We talked about process that is a part of the governance strategy, and Sandbox can be used as a tool to do that. And that's why Sandbox can help you create this process whenever you're making changes to a critical application. It also helps create process between different teams. So between your IT team, between your business users, between even your end users, it can help create a process so individuals are aware of when changes are being made and are confident in the changes that are being made. So those are the three large, broad areas of benefit that you would want to use Sandbox for. But let's also talk about where to use Sandbox and what applications make sense for Sandbox to be turned on. As we talked about before, Sandbox can offer a lot of value for applications that they've been turned on for all those reasons we saw previously. But we also talked about you want to use Sandbox at your discretion. Make sure it's helping you build applications and not hindering the progress of any application that's being built. And so not every application needs a Sandbox to make changes, and it's up to you where you want to make those changes. We do recommend that you turn Sandbox on for first business critical applications. So any applications that are core to your business running, that are crucial, that are always turned on and there's no errors in there. Really applications that if there was any kind of error or outage or stoppage, your business would have a hard time running without these applications. We recommend Sandbox for these type of applications to mitigate any risk, which we talked about Sandbox can help do there. We also recommend Sandbox for complex applications. So for any applications with a number of formulas, fields, applications that are not, one or two simple tables, it's really up to you how you want to determine complex or not for your quick base usage. But for those more complex applications, we do recommend you use Sandbox, again, to mitigate risk, minimize any of that risk that you might see with making a change on a complex application in production, and to also help collaborate on these complex applications that a number of different individuals may have worked on to build in the first place. So this is where we recommend that you use Sandbox, again, completely up to your discretion where you want to use it, but do want to make sure that Sandbox is providing value and can help you build your application. Great. So how can you use Sandbox? So how to use Sandbox? Sandbox can be turned on at the per application level. We'll show you here in a moment. It can be turned on. You can publish it into your live production environment. You can keep your sandbox running for a long sandbox, or you can have a short running sandbox, really up to how you want to use it. But in order to see how to really use Sandbox, let's dive into a live demonstration, into an application I have running here, and see how we can turn Sandbox on. In this case here, I have an application to manage events. And in my table that we can see here, my event attendee manager table, I can see a list of all individuals that I've sent invites out to for events, or virtual events in this case, and also the way that they've RSVP'd as well. This is a mission critical application for my business. So seeing a list of all the attendees, seeing their RSVP and their status, that is crucial for me to see every single day. And this app in this case is very far reaching and does reach a number of end users. And it is a very important application for my business here. Today in this application, I actually want to make a couple of different changes because some business requirements have changed. So I do have the ability to change my application, but I do want to do that in a sandbox area because, as I mentioned, this is a mission critical application for me, for my team. I want to minimize any risks for the changes that I'm making. So I'll use Sandbox to do that, which is easy to turn on here. The two changes that I do want to make before I turn on Sandbox is I want to highlight in green right here on the table all individuals that are VIP members. So when those individuals walk in, I can see them highlighted in bright green. I know who they are. I'm drawn right to those individuals. We can give them some special attention as a VIP. So I'll make a change here to my table with some color coding. And the second change I want to make is I also want to add a cell phone field to this area here. We have phone, but we want to add a cell phone field so I can quickly text these attendees, text these individuals. Maybe they're running late, maybe we're running late for the virtual event. We want to be able to communicate with them quickly. So we'll also add that cell phone field as well. So again, we'll make those two changes. We'll do that in a sandbox area, and I'll quickly turn on my sandbox, which I can do on the per application level. I do that with my app properties, turn on my sandbox checkbox here, save that. And now we can see Sandbox has been turned on for this application because of this green bar over here in the left-hand corner. It's showing me Sandbox is turned on. We haven't yet created a Sandbox, but the functionality is turned on with this live button here. What I can now do is create a Sandbox from this area. Now that Sandbox is turned on, I want to create a new Sandbox. I can quickly name it, and I can copy down numbers of different records that I want to pull down based on what testing that I need to do. In this case, because I do have a color code based on some data that we want to show based on the type of attendee that we have, I do want to pull records down, but based on the changes that you need to make in your application via Sandbox, you can pull down no records, all records, or a limited amount of records. It's really up to you based on what changes you're going to be making. Now I've created my Sandbox. We can see I'm in my Sandbox here because that green bar has been turned to blue. It's letting me know we are in a Sandbox environment. And I can see my data has also been copied down. And now I'm in my Sandbox environment. I can make those changes that I need to see. And I'll first make that color coding change that we have based on our VIP members, which was something I wanted to change on that table. What I'll do here is assign different colors based on registration type, which lets me know individuals that are VIP or not. And for those individuals that have RSVP to every event, we'll make them that bright green color. They'll show up to us there on that table. And we can see if that has worked and if that change has been successfully made inside of our Sandbox. Here's my test data. I can see that change has been successfully made. There are those VIPs and they've now been highlighted in green. So that change has gone well and I feel comfortable promoting that change. The second change I want to make is also to add that cell phone field. So I can quickly do that in my settings here inside my Sandbox. I'll add my cell phone field quickly, select the phone number, add that, and then see if that shows up inside my Sandbox on that table. It looks like it does. I can see cell phone field here, and I feel confident I've made that change in the right area, so I can promote that up to Sandbox, or I can promote that up to the live environment from Sandbox as well. So now those changes have been made. That's exactly what I will do. We will review and publish this sandbox, first be brought to an area where I can see all the changes that I've made. I can review these. I only made 2 changes today, but if I made a number of other changes, I could also see those in my review area. These all look great. I'll go ahead and publish those changes, remove my sandbox. I don't need it anymore, although you can keep it on if you want to. And we can see those changes are now reflected correctly in the live production environment. Here's my green color coding. Here's my cell phone field with data I can start to fill out in the live environment, and I've successfully made those changes. What I can do now I'm done is turn Sandbox off, disable that Sandbox feature, although you can leave it on depending if you need it again. Changes have been made and everything looks good here in the live production environment. So in this case, I was able to make those changes in a safe area. I was able to do that on my mission critical application and really use Sandbox to do that and then promote into the live application. So that's Sandbox for today. Thank you for coming and thanks for taking a look at Sandbox. Thank you.